Good evening. Welcome to Story Time with Peter B. Baron. I'm your host, Peter B. Baron. On this episode, we're going to take a quick peek at the short story, Picture the End. It's about a struggling artist. I think you'll like it. But if not, at least you'll save a couple bucks in sleeping pills. First, let's get out of the cold. Treat you to a cup of hot chocolate. Come on. How are you?
What can we get you today?
Oh, can I grab 2 hot chocolates, please?
2 hot chocolates. Great. It's a cold day, so we're selling lots. A little whipped cream, right? All right. Excellent.
Thank you very much. Welcome to my store, Bartlett Baron Mens Fashion in downtown Walnut Creek. We're just 3 blocks north of the Broadway Plaza. Come on in, take a second and look around. Make yourself at home. All right, let's get started. They do a nice job. All right. Okay, bear with me here for a second. All right, there you go. I got it. Somebody once said, things don't change, just the players involved. After all, it was just another night, seemingly like all the rest. In a darkened room, lit only by the reflection of the television, Taylor sits in the archway of his window. Living on the second floor of what used to be an old 2-story restaurant, Taylor Persons often relaxes by listening to jazz, smoking a cigarette, and watching people pass by on the street below. In his relative few years, 30 to be exact, he remembers when things didn't seem so negative. Not so much for himself, but in the world as a whole. Actually, there's a strange contentment that he feels. It's a bit difficult to explain. He's happy with the progress he has made. Although living the typical starving artist lifestyle, oftentimes being so far behind financially that those of weaker minds would have given up long ago, he squeaks by. In fact, he has managed to build a bit of a name for himself. Having his work shown in some galleries, restaurants, and a couple magazines, things seem to be going as planned. Now he has taken on an old restaurant. With money that had been borrowed, the bottom floor has been converted into a gallery open to the public. This one is different in nature. It doesn't have the cold feeling that most galleries do. If you sit on one of the couches tucked in the corner, glass of wine in hand, listening to the coolest and contemporary jazz, you get the impression that you're spending time in a friend's living room. Oh, and of course, a coffee and espresso section for those keeping with the current fad. Glancing over at the soundless images on the television, Taylor becomes lost. With a frozen look of disbelief, he watches the news. Story after story, death, nothing but senseless death. The innocent dying as a result of religious differences, crime without reason, and foolish pride that keeps governments from concentrating on the future. Instead, they hang on to the past. Maybe 10 or 15 years ago, I was too young to pay attention, he thinks to himself. Of course, there have always been problems. Relations between races has never been strong. However, now it seems that the news consists of 3/4 of the program being dedicated to thoroughly negative situations, then comes the weather, and finally sports. Of course, if you ever spoke with anyone involved with what's being shown, the response would be, well, it's out there, so it's our job to report it. Well, yes, sure, there are situations that can be improved upon once attention is brought to them, yet they don't seem to realize the influence that television has on those barely hanging on to reality. It has now come to the point where someone wanting to take themselves out of the picture says aloud, I will show them, they will remember me. It seems as though this will be their claim to fame, being shown on the news. It seems so simple. If there could just be enough positive stories of people helping each other, so many stories that this becomes the norm rather than the exception, we may stand a chance. This won't erase anything right away because we all know nothing happens overnight. However, it's got to be easier to improve confidence by focusing on the positive, regardless of the number of negative stories out there. Confidence, in turn, breeds willingness. Willingness to put in the extra effort. After all, if we're going to glamorize anything, let it be the progress we're making as a whole. It will allow people to say, if they can do it, so can we, but we'll do it better. As it stands right now, there's a feeling of being overwhelmed. Most people think that their small contributions go unrecognized and as a result are not effective. Why bother? Nothing's going to help, they say. Then there's drugs. It would be safe to say that about 60% of all crime is related in some way to the drug trade. And keep in mind that 73.8% of all statistics are made up on the spot. The ungodly amount of money that is being spent trying to curtail it is being wasted. It's not that people of law enforcement aren't doing their jobs, because that's not the case at all. The problem is demand. No matter how much police are put on the street, no matter how much the community becomes involved, if there's money to be made, it's unstoppable. The government says, imagine a society where drugs are legal. What's the problem? Are they worried about our reputation? Actually, it's getting easier to do exactly that. What would it be like? Taylor thinks to himself. Perhaps there would be specially designated stores, well secured, owned, and operated by the government. The drugs would be much less potent and cheaper in price. We're not going to waste our time worrying about those wasting their lives on drugs. Their destiny's in their own hands. However, there will be programs for those that wish to change. Laws would be similar to that of alcohol. It is legal to buy and use it, yet being under the influence in public is against the law. Sure would be interesting to see what these gun-toting teenagers would do if there was no money to be made. With the summer night's breeze blowing in through the opening of the window is a perfect night to sit and think. But it's now 2:30 a.m. and time to sleep. The room completely darkens as Taylor shuts off the television and walks down the hall. Barely able to see one foot in front of the other, he sees a light coming from somewhere and it shines directly on the picture of his friend Annette. Smiling, he continues on to the bedroom. Using only a single sheet for warmth, he tosses and struggles to fall asleep. What is she doing? He wonders. Does she think about me? Does she miss Los Angeles at all? He remembers the night so clearly. It was Angela's birthday. Angela was a friend that worked for him as a clothing store that he used to manage. It was a small get-together. It was just a few people over for a birthday dinner. And then it happened. The front door opened and in walked Annette, who he had never met before. It was love at first sight. Something felt so familiar about it that perhaps they were together in a former life. She is beautiful. Long, straight brown hair partially pulled up away from her face. She stands about 5'6" tall with a face like an angel. She's 25 years old and a lady in every sense of the word. Oh my, she's the one for me, he says to himself. She's married. Don't even think about it, Angela whispers. He doesn't know the guy she is married to, but he's pretty sure he hates him. Without taking his eyes off of her, he whispers back to Angela, I will be with her. Over the next couple of years, a relationship developed, one that was as strange as the feelings he had for her. Now she's gone, moved to New York. With the night ending and another morning rolling around, Taylor is awakened by the ringing of the telephone. Picking up the phone from a not-so-sound time of rest, Taylor says, hello, in a tired tone. Well, that didn't sound too tired, so imagine it like this. Hello. Okay, so more like that. All right, now where was I? Okay. Taylor, this is Martin Brook. I'm sorry to bother you so early, but I'm not going to be able to make our meeting today. I know you're not going to be happy to hear this, but I'm not going to be able to free up that $25,000 that I had planned on to invest in your place. Well, that's it for tonight. It's just a little test, a little teaser. But join us again on our next episode. There's still a lot more to enjoy. Thank you for tuning in. Hope to see you again soon.